What kicked you out?
I'm asking him to kick us off with the questions.
You mentioned lots of the old guard. How has it been like, especially in a place like Pilsen, where you've obviously got, the really young teenage, like graffiti artists, but also the old guard that's been here since the 60s, the 70s, and you're obviously part of the younger half.
I've gotten a lot of good feedback from both sides. I think because I don't really consider myself like a graffiti writer. Graffiti was something that like I had done when I was younger, and it got me involved into like the whole. It opened me up to the whole street art thing, the whole muralism thing. As a kid, I didn't think I was gonna like when I was doing graffiti. I didn't think I was gonna be a muralist. That wasn't like what I was doing it for. I love painting trains. I think painting trains is like I love painting trains way more than street bombing. To me, painting trains was like it's something I always want. It came to a point where I even thought I was like, man, if I did need to get like a 9 to 5 job or like, I would still continue painting trains.
You mean literally painting onto trains, like when I'm stopped at a train and I see them all tacked up and stuff?
Right, like a freight train. I prefer freight trains because those are, like, you can do a lot more on freight trains, whereas like the CTA trains out here, it's like you've got to be more of a bomber. You got to be more of a street bomber than anything because it's got to be really quick. Whereas freights, like, they could leave layups for days on end and they won't know. Or you could just stay there. Like I used to camp and barbecue with my friends at freight spots, and then we would just clean up, make sure that they wouldn't be able to tell that we were there. So like, graph to me wasn't a focus of art, more so a focus of the expression. Whereas like when I was doing art and learning how to do art and stuff like that, it was more so about like, oh, I want to do art for the sake of doing art. Whereas like graph was like, I want to do graph because I enjoy doing it,
Why trains? I'm just curious.
Because you can stay there for a while. They move everywhere. I always liked it when I would go, like, you're driving, you get at a train stop, and you're just waiting there, and you see all the ugly steel trains, and then all of a sudden you see all this beautiful graffiti on it, and like, oh man, this is actually worth, sitting here, kind of thing.
To Tony's question, we've noticed some real differences between those older school artists, Marcos Raya, Hector Duarte, and folks your age. Not trying to fan the flames of intergenerational tensions, but it's one of the things we're noticing in our project.
I think that they both need to really listen to one another. Like, and that's the thing. Like Hector is like he's a huge influence on me. Same thing with Marcos too. Marcos Raya, he's a influence on me. I love the way he paints. And same thing with what's his name, Roberto Valdez, right? He was actually probably one of my bigger influences out here. Now, those guys came from a time, from an area, from like this whole thing where it's like what they were doing. Art was considered more of a weapon because it was an expression of the community. It was an expression of the people. Whereas like the people who are doing graffiti now, it's more self. It's more about themselves. It's not about the community. It's about like, who they are, right? You can look at someone's style and be like, oh, that's a Marcos Raya, that's Roberto Valdez, but you'll never see like Roberto Valdez do a painting of a bird or anything like that, or like a painting of an abstraction of a woman doing something that's like very surreal. A lot of his stuff is community and a lot of focus in that, which I think that even now we still kind of need that in the community. I just think there does need to be an evolution, and I think that the newer kids, like, we were all young. We all think we know everything, and that's the thing. It's like we realize that like once you get to my age, you're like, oh, I didn't know shit. I was very arrogant, to believe that I did, and to believe that like that the older guard, like you said, are like they don't know what they're doing, or I'm not into like. You have to respect them because if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be doing this shit now. Like as much as people don't want to realize that, like, but it's the truth. Pilsen wouldn't have been considered an artistic hub if it wasn't for them, you know. And so you can't be here doing art and not respect that fact, because it could have what if the gentrification did happen, like the same way it happened in Wicker Park, Logan Square, you know, what's happening to Humboldt Park, you know, Bucktown, all those areas. It's like those areas weren't like that before, you know. If it's happening here, it's happening at a much slower pace, and the art community is still strong here. Whereas, like, those were our communities. Those people had a lot of art and murals and stuff like that. They don't have that shit no more, and if it is, it's being catered to an outside community of people that have nothing to do with the community, have nothing to do with the area. A vast majority of the artists that are being, you know, presented now, they're not even from Chicago. You know, like a lot of the galleries out here, they're not even from Chicago. You know, they might have been here for a while, but they really don't represent like the actual communities. So that's always been like the thing. It's like you have Pilsen here, where it's like a vast majority of the galleries are about being in Pilsen. They're about the community. Whereas like you go to like Westtown and stuff like that, or you know, like Ukraine Village, those people that don't, like, they could up and move to anywhere else and still be what it is that they want it to be. It had nothing to do with the community, you know?
They're trying to have like a more global or universal appeal.
And that's the thing. I think that like what they feel is global and universal is a self-mentality thing. It's self-righteous almost, you know? Like they're feeling that, oh, I have to bring out these people from out of state to show. It's like half the people in the north side don't know who the hell I am. They'll know who somebody is who just got here 2 weeks ago because these galleries were representing them, you know? And that's a big sad thing. It's like, granted, we are the neighborhood at Pilsen, but in the end, we're all from Chicago. You know, we're all from the same city, and we've grown up in the same, you know, mentalities, other than the ones that are in the more affluent areas, you know? And that's why they say, oh, Chicago's a tale of two cities, you know, because it totally is. You know, you can go to one side of the city and it's vastly different than the rest of it, you know? And I think that that's what makes Pilsen strong, is that, like, we want to maintain that mentality that, like, no, we're here, you know, like, and this is our neighborhood. I mean, you can go to Little Village and you'll see something similar, but they don't have the artistic impact that Pilsen has. Same thing with Back of the Yards. Same thing with Humboldt Park. You know, it's like Humboldt Park had a bunch of murals. They have their own, like, those big, you know, sculptural flags. But the people out there aren't the same anymore. The community out there is not the same as it used to be, you know? So, I mean, that's the thing. It's like there's a lot to it, more so than just people thinking that, you know, it's just about our own community. It's like it's the city in entirety, you know? Like, I always take the city as like a body. And, you know, Pilsen is like, you know, like one of the legs, you know what I mean? And like, in order to build up the entire body, the leg has to be strong, and, you know, the rest of the communities have to be just as strong, you know?
Just maybe a couple more questions. Do you have something in the hopper?
Yes, so a lot of your work includes birds and just like very, very colorful, I guess, variety of colors. What kind of is the inspiration in that? And
Just being Latino. I mean, honestly, that comes from, you know, the bird thing came from, my family's from the tropical area of Mexico. You know, we're from Veracruz. There's a lot of different kinds of birds out there. Same thing with Cuba. Like, we're very tropical people. This is why I use like a lot of colors in my work. I think a lot of it too is because I used to just paint crows, and there was a lot of meaning behind that. And I think that a lot of it people felt was dark. I personally think that it's kind of crazy to believe that an animal is a dark thing, you know, when an animal is just an animal. It's a sentient being. Same thing with snakes. Like, I have this big thing that my best friend kind of like opened me up to it, where he was telling me if you look at our people, you know, Latinos, you know, but even brown people in general, all of our cultures, go to Native Americans, go to China, go to different parts of Africa, wherever. We all have similar gods. You know, we have bird gods, we have snake gods, you know. You look at Catholicism and Christianity, their whole thing is slaying the serpent. It's killing our gods, you know? So it's like we've always been into this whole thing where we're taught that what we believe is wrong, you know? And whereas, like, especially being Mexican, Mexicans are an amalgamation of these variety of things. Day of the Dead, that was an Aztec, that was a Mayan thing. You know, now it changed into a Christian kind of thing. You know, we believe in Santa Guadalupe and all this stuff, but still has a lot of that whole old Mayan and Aztec kind of mentality. You know, I mean, the same thing happened with Catholicism, Christianity. It wasn't a thing until Emperor Constantine decided to make it a thing. He made Christianity legal, and then he took the elements of Christianity and mixed them with the elements of the Roman religion, you know, their mythology and stuff like that, right? So Mexicans are essentially the same way. You know, we come from our combination of our old native stuff, even like Santeria. Santeria is voodoo and, you know, Catholicism. And I think that we're good at that kind of stuff, like trying to like cover up who we actually are and what we actually came from and stuff like that. And I think that nowadays, like the wokeness, you know, and I say that because that's such a broad thing where it's like, to me, some of it's really good and some of it's really bad. But like us understanding where we actually came from, and then realizing that like this is what happened to us, we're gonna take this and we're gonna own this. You know, I may be of the Mayan or Zapotec or Olmec or, you know, whatever culture, but I'm taking the Catholicism and I'm amalgamating that into what it is my everyday beliefs are. You know, like in reality, if you were a Christian, you shouldn't be praying to other saints. You know, there shouldn't be but that's what we are. We're pagans in a sense, right?
Find a way.
Yeah, there's a lot to it that like who we are as a people, like kind of help us define ourselves a little bit more. Whereas like I don't think other cultures get that as much. You know, I think there is no combination of the Buddhist culture and Catholicism. There's no combination of Hinduism and Catholicism. There's none of that. You know, you only see it within us. You know, and Christianity in itself. Like if you look at all the things that like even the way we are today, Monday, Sunday, those are all pagan, you know, ideals and stuff like that. Those came from like the Vikings and shit like that, and all these other people from Europe, right? So like that's the thing. I think that we were good enough to be able to take those things and be like, we'll take these properties and the elements and then, you know, develop them with our own culture, you know.
Just want to maybe end where you began. When we opened, you talked a bit about the business side of things. So I wanted to ask you about taking commissions. How do you take commissions? How do you work as an artist? And then are there commissions that you turn down?
Oh, I turn down commissions all the time. I give them away. I like tell people, go to this guy. I tell people like, you get what I want. You know, you tell me what of my stuff that you like, and then we can work from there. You know, but if you're gonna ask me to do a Chicago skyline, you know, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's gonna be automatically $10,000. You know, off the bat. Like, if you don't like it, go to this guy. You
Why?
know,
Because it's a cliche, or
it is a cliche,
yeah.
and that's the thing I'm kind of sick of, is that the whole cliche, people not really being creative with what it is that they're doing. I always have to tell people like, I just got, you know, like I'll like not in a way to humiliate them, but I'll be like, you know, this is nothing that's creative. This is nothing that expresses who you are. You know, everyone has their own thing that they personally enjoy. You know, I don't know how many times I've gone to an office building and they have the skyline of Chicago right there. It's like the same office right next door has the same thing, and right next to that guy the same thing too. You know.
So how do you find a way to fulfill clients' wants while still maintaining your artistic vision and integrity?
That's the thing. Sometimes a client if they want something so much that I don't want to do, then I just send them to somebody else. I have to respect what I am first, like I mean, it was cool before, and not to saying that it's bad, and not to saying that when people do it, they're wrong, they're not respecting themselves, but I've come to a point where it's like, I have my own voice. I can't have other people tell me what it is that they want out of my voice. It's like, I don't know, it's one of those things that like for a little bit it was fine, like I was saying before, but after a while you just look like someone who just does that stuff. Oh, this person, they do that kind of work. You're never going to be respected in the arts if you're just doing commissions of other people's work for them, or trying to I just want lines and dashes, stuff like that. It's like, you have no voice then, and for me, that's how I feel about it.
Anything else? We are studying the murals of Pilsen. Anything else that we just didn't get to that you just absolutely want us or anyone watching to know about this art community?
It would be nice if people were to start really looking into what good public art is, as opposed to like the cookie cutter kind of stuff, the stuff that like, just because it's a very cutesy image doesn't mean that it's good for the public. I think a lot of times when you don't put out stuff that has more seriousness to it, like, you're actually denying like the public of what the reality of things are, and when the public feels that like, oh, I like this really cutesy image because it's all over the fucking place, and this person's putting the same shit everywhere. This is a great artist. That's kind of the fucked up thing about it. It's like you're really not seeing the truly advanced, truly like the people that have stories to tell, the people that have, things to say. If you think that public art should be cutesy and whatnot, then kind of lost to what actual public art is about.
Do you have any kind of final advice for how to take a more serious approach to the public art, to take the stuff that's surrounding us in Pilsen?
I think that stuff like this, like if people were to be more like what you guys are doing now, like an education system where it's like people thinking that a certain artist is doing great work, but then it's really trite, and then you see some of the stuff that was being done before, and you're like, man, what happened to this stuff? Where people actually had talent, and people were actually able to draw a person and not make it look like a squiggle. That's been a huge issue for me. It's like people think that bad art is good because they see it everywhere, and that's kind of like, then who are you to tell people that this is art? Because you obviously don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Can you recommend a couple of pieces that someone should see if they're new to Pilsen, if they're watching this in anticipation of doing what we're talking about?
My stuff, for sure.
Well, we're definitely going to recommend that.
I think what Mauricio Ramirez did over by my mural, even though like it's still super Mexican and it's still an image that everyone paints, I think the way he did it was really cool because he has that whole new style that like some people in Europe are doing. Really like what
talking about the Pilsen
the
warriors,
Aztec?
kind of cubist kind of.
Yeah. Sorry, I tell people, hey, I'm in the middle. They're like, oh, are you in the middle of your interviews? Assholes. I'd say like that, yeah, and I think what God, I keep forgetting his name. The other young guy, he does the more community-based stuff. God damn it, I know the guy's name too. He's a really cool cat. He does the karaoke over at yeah, like the big Pilsen mural that he did of the community. I think
Mateo,
huh?
Mateo?
No, Mateo isn't. He's not an artist. He's a photographer, and he worked with the artist to do that. That was his concept. Him and the artist executed.
Gotcha.
God, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot his fucking name. I'll text it to you once I remember.
We'll edit it in. Pretend you got it on the spot.
Right. But yeah, I think that there's that one big community mural over by the Tortilla factory.
Yeah. The Somos Pilsen one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. It was a huge one.
Yeah.
And it took them like months to do.
Gorgeous piece.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That is like a true community mural. It's not like, Libertad and all this other stuff. We've already went through all that. Now it's like portraying the actual community and what the community wants. People of the community and things like that.
It's a great note to end it on. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for
for
your
sure.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.